Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster today, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Am I not a real brother too? Just because you are a darker hue, does that not make me a real brother too? I mean, so what, I'm light-skinned. But is it my fault that my great-great-great-grandmother, who was enslaved, was raped by her filthy and ghastly enslaver? Is it my fault that that devil's blood is running through my veins? So what would you like for me to do to look more like you? Stand out in the sun and bake my skin into a kin? Or should I color my hands and face with makeup? Because the implication is, the insinuation is, hell, the connotation is that in order to be a real brother, your skin has to be the color of night. Otherwise, you're not right. I assure you, my brother, that when the police, for example, racial profile, they don't show us light-skinned brothers any benevolence. Hell, if you identify to be black, that's the only fact that they need. Consider this. One day, my best buddy, who was a highly melanated, dark-skinned brother, and I were walking through a department store. Guess who was accosted and falsely accused of stealing? That's right, me. And when the store manager realized he made a grievous mistake, he, embarrassed by his racially motivated behavior, put me out of the store. Didn't so much as offer an apology. He even threatened to call the security. Now, fellow Toastmasters, don't feel any sympathy for me because, excuse my language, I sued their ass and I won big. But my point is, he didn't see a light-skinned guy. What he saw was a young black individual, and consequently that made me suspicious. So what about accomplished American Africans of the past who happen to be of lighter complexion? What about J.A. Rogers, who for more than 50 years painstakingly conducted anthropological and historical research on the black man and black woman, and as a result wrote several books including Sex and Race, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, and my favorite, From Superman to Man. Was he not a real brother? What about Malcolm X, one of the most outspoken and fearless leaders of the 20th century, who said that of all our studies, history is the best reward on research? Was he not a real brother? What about W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the greatest intellectual minds of the late 19th and early 20th century, who prophesied that the problem of the 20th century would be the problem of the color line? Was he not a real brother? What about Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice? What about Ralph Bunche, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1950? What about Colin Powell? Bad example. What about Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who, as a United States representative for New York, led several marches during the Civil Rights Movement, and also forced retail and department stores to begin hiring or promoting black employees? These were all light-skinned brothers who made great sacrifices for black people. They didn't give a damn about the complexion of one's skin. The only thing they was concerned about was the freedom, justice, and equality for black people in this country. And unfortunately, that struggle continues. So are you telling me that in the 21st century, in 2010, that the Willie Lynch syndrome still permeates the African American community? Who was Willie Lynch, you ask? Well, Willie Lynch was a British enslaver from the West Indies who came to the United States, or I should say the colony of Virginia, in 1712. And on the banks of the James River, he delivered a speech to his fellow American enslavers on how to control the enslaved. Now, some folks say that the term lynching is actually derived from Willie Lynch's name. And there are other folks who say that Willie Lynch is a mythical figure, that the speech never really took place, that the speech itself is an example of agitation propaganda. However, if you read the speech, one of the things that he talks about is taking advantage of the differences in skin tone amongst the enslaved and using that as a means to create division. Now, whether you believe the speech to be true or not, if you look at the social interaction of too many American Africans, it would be hard to disprove complexion prejudice in our communities. Now, one of the things you might ask yourself is, how does this complexion prejudice affect us as a community? Well, if you look, for example, at Haiti, in spite of the recent natural disaster, there is wealth in Haiti. 70% of Haiti's wealth is controlled by 1% of the population. That 1% of the population happens to be light-skinned African Americans, or light-skinned people of African descent. Coincidence? I don't think so. I never forget the time where a friend, who I thought was a friend, made a comment in reference to studies have shown that white people treat light-skinned African Americans better than us darker brothers. So for a minute I thought, is it my complexion he has the issue with? Or is he desirous of this presumed acceptance he thinks I received from white people? So I said, if your self-esteem and your self-worth is so low that you have to rely or seek validation from other people, that's not my issue. Why should our social interaction have to be predicated on how you assume someone else treats me? The bottom line is, truth be told, you and I are in the same boat. So if you decide to jump ship, that's fine with me, because it can get real lonely swimming by yourself very quickly. My point was, in order for us to become socially, economically, and politically empowered, we have to overcome these social constructs. So the bottom line is this. If sacrificing my time, my weekends, and in some cases relationships to study, research the contributions of African Americans in this country and throughout the world, if loving and respecting black women, even sometimes when they don't respect themselves, if going out of my way to patronize black businesses, even if it requires me inconveniencing myself, if giving back to HBCUs I've attended, if aspiring to excellence at whatever I do, if this does not constitute being a real brother, then my brother, maybe you need to redefine your definition of a true brother. Mr. Toastmaster.